Hey guys, tonight we're going deep into the ancient temples of Egypt, not as a tourist, not even as a scribe, but as a priest, one of the select few chosen to serve the gods with body, spirit, and stomach. The sun is sinking behind the pylons of Karnak, throwing gold light over sandstone walls. You're barefoot on hot dust, wrapped in freshly washed linen, and as the air cools, something primal kicks in. You smell roasted meat, fermented grains, sweet fruit left under the sun, and yes, you're technically here to conduct divine rituals. But your stomach? It has its own agenda. Welcome to the one night you've been waiting for all season, the sacred feast. And spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this without a serious food coma. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through the temple corridor, feet brushing against hieroglyph-carved stone, your body humming with anticipation. Outside, the celebrants dance and chant, but inside, the air is cooler, shadowed, solemn. The smell of lotus and cardamom greets you first. It's stronger than last time, maybe because they've doubled the incense, or maybe because you haven't eaten since the last lunar cycle. As a priest, you fast before the festival. Not a cleanse, mind you. This isn't your influencer's smoothie detox. This is 6 days of water, piety, and willpower while preparing offerings, chanting verses, and bathing thrice daily. Your body's clean. But your hunger? It's bordering on transcendent. The kind of hunger that makes you imagine roasted goat legs levitating. You pass a junior priest holding a ceremonial torch. He eyes your stomach as it growls. Respectfully. Because he's in the same boat. Both of you know that the moment dusk hits, all that restraint dissolves into one of the most elaborate eating rituals on earth. Tonight isn't just about gorging. It's about reenacting the mythos. Every dish has a meaning. Every bite is a tribute. That honey-glazed bread? It represents Ra's golden journey across the sky. The fermented fish paste? That's, well, honestly, no one knows anymore. But it's traditional, and you'll smile while chewing it, even if it smells like the Nile during low tide. You enter the feast courtyard, hidden from public eyes. Only priests may enter here, and only during festivals. A large stone basin is filled with wine-colored hibiscus water. You wash your hands as the temple harp begins a lilting tune. Yes, harp music. Because even your digestion must be holy tonight. The long table is already set. Not in the modern sense, no chairs, no silverware. Just low, circular tables, woven mats, and ceramic platters so full they look sinful. Breads shaped like crocodiles, figs so ripe they burst at a touch. Carved roast ibex legs, still steaming. And the smell? A combination of cumin, smoke, sweet myrrh, and very faintly, burnt offering. You can't decide if that's appetizing or ominous. As you sit cross-legged beside the other priests, you note the quiet murmurs. There's reverence, yes, but also anticipation. Even the high priest, stoic, nearly mummified by tradition, licks his lips just a little. He pretends it's a recitation gesture. It is not. And then, a hush. The opening prayer. You recite it together, voices low and in rhythm, invoking Osiris, Isis, and Ra. The words have weight. They remind you, this isn't gluttony. It's sacred consumption. You're not eating for yourself. You're eating as a vessel. The gods consume through you. Also, your stomach is seconds from starting a revolt. The first dish arrives, sweet barley stew with crushed lotus seeds and honey. You scoop it with a crescent of warm bread. The taste is deep, nutty, like porridge, but with the echo of desert sweetness and smoke. You close your eyes. Your body, which has been on the edge all week, lets out a soft hum. It's better than any modern buffet, mostly because you earned it with 6 days of spiritual hangriness. Historians still argue whether priests truly abstained from food for the entire week or only daylight hours. What's certain is that by the time the feast began, no one held back. There's even a temple inscription warning junior priests to pace themselves lest they fall before the gods in indigestion. Ancient shade. You reach for the pomegranate glazed duck, carved neatly and placed atop flatbread sprinkled with coriander. One bite and your tongue sings. You remind yourself not to moan audibly. Dignity. You're still a representative of divine balance. And yet, someone across the table giggles. He's got honey on his nose. You shoot him a stern priestly glare, but then break into a grin. This is sacred joy. It's okay to laugh when the duck tastes like absolution. A fringe tale flickers in your mind, about a priest named Harstep who once fainted mid-festival from too much divine ecstasy via roast lamb. You wonder if that's code for food poisoning or just overcommit munching. As the sky deepens into purple-black, torches are lit. Shadows dance along the temple walls. And you? You lean back slightly, belly warmed, hands sticky with fruit juice, and think, if this is divine service, you're definitely renewing your contract. Just don't think about the fermented cheese platter coming next. It's a test of faith, and of nose tolerance. You shift slightly on the woven mat, belly only just warming up to the onslaught ahead. Your linen robes bunch awkwardly as you lean toward a platter of spiced lentils and roasted onions. A junior priest nudges it closer with the reverence of someone moving a holy relic. You offer him a thankful grunt. It's unspoken, but you both know the truth. This is the meal of the season. Possibly the year. But you didn't just show up for a buffet. You worked for this. Because in the days leading up to the feast, you were forbidden from indulging in anything beyond water, the occasional sip of diluted date wine for ritual purposes, and more than one bath a day. The fasting wasn't optional, it was sacred preparation. Not just a symbolic hunger, but a full bodily detox. Some days, you felt like your soul might float out of your skin just for a whiff of roasted garlic. You wonder if modern humans would survive it. A week of ritual purification, silent prayers, no snacks, and scrubbing yourself with natron, basically the ancient world's baking soda. Just imagine a gym cleanse, a monastery vow, and a very pushy spa treatment all rolled into one. And then imagine doing that while preparing meat for the gods you can't eat yet. Torture? Maybe. Devotion? Absolutely. Now, finally, it's over. And the first bite, oh, that first bite, is a moment that hits your brain like a hymn. You were told to eat slowly, to remember that every mouthful is shared with the gods. But let's be honest, your chewing has rhythm but no restraint. You're just glad there's no Instagram. No one needs to see a divine priest double-fisting grape bundles like a toddler. Historians still debate how strictly these dietary rules were enforced. Some claim the priests followed them to the letter, others believe there was plenty of, let's say, sacred bending of the rules behind closed-curtain partitions. After all, it's hard to believe no one was sneaking bites while preparing temple kitchens filled with everything from boiled quail to honey-glazed gazelle. There's even graffiti tucked behind a column in the Temple of Edfu that appears to be a recipe for fig and beer stew, possibly a priest's guilty secret. Or the oldest food blog on record. Tonight, though, everyone's honest about it. This is sanctioned indulgence. Festival time. You sip your beer. And by sip, we mean slowly slurp through a thick reed straw, trying not to suck up too many yeast clumps. Beer in Egypt isn't the golden bubbly stuff you're used to. This is heavy, cloudy, brewed with emmer wheat and sometimes flavored with date syrup or herbs. It's less cheers, made in more may R.A. bless this semi-liquid bread. And it hits, gently at first. Then suddenly, you blink, and someone's laughing harder than they should at a great pit joke. The priests of Batet were always a rowdy bunch. Your seat partner, an older priest who smells like cedar oil and responsibility, leans over and whispers, "Remember the rule, chew first, worship later." You both snort softly. Laughter isn't banned during the festival, but there's still that line between holy and hangry behavior. You try to walk it. You fail. You accept your fate. Someone brings out a dish you've been dreaming about all week, grilled pigeon stuffed with barley and figs. You accept it like it's a newborn child. You bite. The texture is soft and smoky, the stuffing perfectly sticky sweet. It tastes like a prayer. A messy, finger-licking prayer. You wipe your hands on a cloth and remind yourself that yes, you're technically representing Ma'at, the goddess of order and balance, but also, you're starving and this pigeon is your soulmate. There's a flicker of movement near the edge of the courtyard. You glance up. A line of temple servers in crisp linen step forward, balancing bowls of lentil stew topped with fermented garlic and chopped leeks. You freeze. Garlic. The forbidden fruit of Egyptian temples. Some priests ban it entirely. Others claim it's sacred. You remember hearing an argument once that garlic burns away evil spirits, and another that it offends the nose of the gods. And frankly, garlic does tend to linger. Even Hathor might raise an eyebrow. Historians still argue whether garlic and onions were included or omitted from sacred feasts. Some temples ban them outright. Others embrace them like culinary frankincense. In your temple, the rule is if you smell like garlic, don't go near the altar. But tonight's different. Tonight, garlic is sanctioned. And you do not say no to sanctified lentils. You dip your bread. The stew is thick, spicy, deeply earthy. You make a mental note to apologize to Hathor in the morning for the breath you're about to have. As the stars creep higher, the feasting continues. You notice something strange, a platter of pickled fish laid off to one side, untouched. Fish is taboo for you as a priest. Officially. It's associated with Seth, the chaos god, and considered unclean in your order. But someone still brought it. Maybe for a visiting group from another temple. Maybe as a test. You eye it like it's a cursed artifact. Tempting. Salty. Off limits. You move on. Nobly. Barely. A soft chant rises from the central altar. It's the hymn of gratitude. You place your hand on your chest and recite the words along with the others, mouth full of figure. You're not proud. You're not ashamed either. The gods understand. You're mortal. A devoted, hungry mortal. Across the courtyard, someone passes out a new treat, flat cakes made from tiger nuts and honey. Crunchy. Sweet. Slightly floral. You close your eyes and take it slow. You've earned this moment. Not just as a priest, but as someone who's survived a week of relentless discipline. The smell of roasted sesame drifts on the air. Your mouth waters again, impossibly. You're full, but this feast is far from over. You lean back, resting on one elbow, belly comfortably rounded, eyes half-lidded. A torch flickers beside a stone column, casting jagged shadows. You breathe deeply. Sandalwood. Lentils. Burnt figure. And underneath it all, satisfaction. For now. You wake from a half-second food daze, blinking slowly as another platter glides past, this one carried by a barefoot boy who might be 12, but carries himself like he personally reports to Thoth. The aroma wafting from the dish snaps your attention back into full priestly focus. Roast goose. Glazed. Shining. Probably illegal. Because here's the thing about being a priest in ancient Egypt. Your mouth may be holy, but your cravings are decidedly human. And though the temple scrolls are very clear, no pork, no fish, depending on region, no unclean animals, everyone knows that the line between sacred law and whispered indulgence gets blurrier with every extra cup of beer. You weren't supposed to eat goose tonight. Technically. Some sects saw goose as a sacred symbol of Geb, the earth god, and eating one would be like chewing on your great uncle. Other temples, though? They claimed Geb wanted you to taste the richness of his creation, especially if it involved honey glaze and fennel seed. Historians still argue whether priests ate these meats only during festivals or whether secret bites happen more often behind the papyrus screens. You know what's not up for debate? This goose smells divine. The skin is crisped, blackened just enough, and glistening with a dark sheen of pomegranate molasses. You're handed a piece. No one speaks. Not because it's forbidden, but because everyone's chewing with eyes closed. The meat falls apart in your mouth. It's sweet, salty, deep. Somewhere, a lyre plays a single pluck of agreement. You nearly drop your reed spoon in gratitude. You glance sideways, checking the high priest. His lips twitch. He's pretending not to enjoy it. That is, of course, a lie. Then, like a whispered joke from the gods, you see it, a small plate tucked discreetly behind a stone jar. On it, 2 thick slices of salted pork. Real pork. The most forbidden meat of all. You glance around. No one else has noticed. Or maybe they're ignoring it on purpose. Pork was strongly associated with Seth, the god of chaos and violence. Some temple walls depict Seth as a black pig. Consuming pork, especially during sacred festivals, was believed to attract impure energy. It was the spiritual equivalent of spray painting a frown onto Maat's perfectly balanced scales. But here it is. On a plate. With mustard leaves and a smear of fig paste. You stare for a moment too long. A younger priest notices and smirks. For the gods, of course, he whispers. You both chuckle. Nervously. Is it bait? Is this a test? Is this just really well-prepared pork? You don't reach for it. Not tonight. But you do wonder, who cooked it? Who placed it? Who ate it last year and didn't tell anyone? Later, after the festival, it'll be gone. The plate will be scrubbed. The memory of it erased by morning. And no one will speak of it. Not out of fear, but tradition. Some foods weren't meant for public tongues. As the next course arrives, you're grateful it's easier to justify, roasted root vegetables layered with honeyed lentils. You pile some onto your tray with relief. The priest beside you raises a single eyebrow, which in priest speak means, smart move. The roots are tender, soaked with sweet cumin and desert garlic. You chew slowly, letting the flavors melt into the back of your mouth. It's earthy, grounding. The kind of dish that makes you feel like you've been buried in warm sand and blessed by the sun. Also, no controversy. Thank RA. Just as you're about to sneak a second serving, something curious catches your eye. Not food. A scroll, laid open near the altar, half tucked under a pomegranate basket. On it, faded ink diagrams what appears to be a menu. A real one. For the gods. Not metaphorical, like an actual list of what each deity prefers. You shuffle closer during a ceremonial chant, careful not to spill your lentils. The list includes beer for Osiris, grapes for Hathor, onions, yes, onions, for Sekhmet, and raw lettuce for men. You blink. Raw. Lettuce. The fringe scholars always said lettuce was a fertility symbol because of its milky sap, but serving it raw and unwashed? Even modern salad lovers would hesitate. Then again, Min wasn't exactly subtle. And you? You're not one to judge another god's palate. Back at the table, a priest tells a story between bites of apricot-stuffed bread. About a previous festival when someone brought almond sweets shaped like scarabs. They were so perfect that the high priest accidentally worshipped them before realizing they were edible. You laugh, almost choking on your lentils. The bread is flaky, crumbly, soaked in syrup. You wonder if scarab-shaped pastries are still trending or if that was just a one-festival fad. Speaking of shapes, you notice another plate now making the rounds. Meatballs shaped like little falcons. Horace approved. There's a moment of admiration before they're devoured with casual piety. You snag one and raise it in mock salute. Somewhere, a priest rolls his eyes at you. Sacred mockery, you think to yourself, is probably still devotion. You're nearly full now, but the festival has its own rhythm. It ebbs and flows like the Nile. Just when you think it's winding down, a new tray appears. This one with stuffed grape leaves and pickled dates, sharp, sweet, tongue-tingling. You take two and lie back, chewing slowly. Letting the flavors stretch across your jaw, melt into the roof of your mouth. You can't help but smile. There's something beautiful in this chaos. In this ritual gluttony that feels like worship. You've gone from famished to fulfilled in less than an hour, and yet somehow, your heart is fuller than your stomach. The moon rises above the pylon gate. Cool light spills over stone. Priests lean back. Murmurs soften. Someone burps quietly and apologizes to Isis. And behind it all, the distant scent of honeyed goose still lingers in the night air. Forbidden? Maybe. But unforgettable. You don't even realize you're chewing until the crunch of something sweet and flowery snaps you back into your own mouth. It's bread, but not the boring, everyday kind. This loaf is shaped like a seated baboon, thick with dates and glazed so generously you could probably use it as a sunblock. You blink slowly, licking syrup from your fingers, and remind yourself you're still in the sacred courtyard. Technically, the bread comes in all shapes tonight. Not just baboons. There are falcons, cobras, ankhs, and one ambitious loaf that's supposed to be Thoth but looks more like someone dropped a scroll into wet dough. Still, the symbolism matters. Every loaf means something. Some are blessings, others are protectors, and a few are just culinary memes that priests pass around to lighten the mood after 40 hours of fasting and chanting. Bread, in ancient Egypt, isn't just food. It's a sacred offering, an economic unit, and a statement piece. You've handed bread to statues. Left it on altars. Stuffed it with spices and fruit and even the occasional nugget of dried meat. You've baked it in clay molds and stamped it with seals so the gods know it's legit. And tonight, finally, you get to eat the good stuff. Historians are still decoding the exact ingredients used in festival bread. Some scrolls mention acacia gum, others talk about dried lotus and fermented fig pulp. There's even a fringe theory that certain loaves were brewed with mild psychoactive herbs to help priests commune with the divine. You're not saying you feel high, but that loaf shaped like a cat just blinked at you. You grab another chunk, this time from a flat, round cake that smells of caraway and desert smoke. The crust crackles under your teeth, but the inside is pillowy soft. You detect cinnamon, maybe even a hint of date syrup. A younger priest leans in and whispers, "That one's Ra's favorite." You raise your eyebrow. He grins. "Because it tastes like sun." You laugh softly, remembering last year's disaster, when someone misread the scroll and accidentally baked 6 dozen loaves shaped like dung beetles. The high priest was not amused. They still tasted great, though. Little honey bombs. This year, someone made sure the recipe scroll was triple-checked, even if the actual execution still leans interpretive. A wide basket is passed down your row. Inside are miniature pyramid-shaped loaves dusted with barley flour. You take one, marveling at how something so simple can feel so heavy with meaning. The outside is dry, flaky. But inside? Dates. pomegranate, and something like clove. You chew slowly, closing your eyes. It tastes like warm stone, some warm figs, and the kind of spice that makes your teeth tingle. You glance around. Everyone's got sticky fingers and full cheeks. Reverence has relaxed into familiarity. You see priests giggling into their cloaks, licking sugar from their thumbs. One of them tries to juggle 3 baboon-shaped loaves and drops them all. Another smashes one into a goose head and calls it new mythology. You snort. Quietly. The oven fire at the edge of the courtyard crackles louder now. 2 apprentice priests are still baking, their hands white with flour, their robes dusted with ash. You remember that role. Sweating through linen in the midday heat, kneading dough with prayer chants, hoping the bread doesn't burn or bubble or explode. Festival baking is part recipe, part gamble. One batch, perfectly risen, and you're a temple hero. Another batch, too yeasty or too flat, and you're the reason someone says the gods frown during the evening hymn. You wander closer to the ovens, wiping your hands on your sash. One of the bakers notices you and grins, holding up a loaf shaped like the Eye of Horus. It's slightly lopsided. He shrugs. It still sees, he says. You chuckle, take it, and break it in half. Steam rises. It smells of sesame, coriander, and pride. You pat his shoulder. The gods will understand. Bread in Egypt isn't soft wonder-style sandwich fluff. It's dense. Sometimes rock hard. You've cracked a tooth before. But festival bread? That's a whole other level. Tonight's bread is indulgent. Thick with oils, stuffed with preserved fruit, sometimes even fried before baking. It's meant to last. It's meant to satisfy. And it's meant to be beautiful, because you're not just feeding your stomach. You're feeding the spirits watching through temple walls. There's a tray of dipping sauces now, one made of pressed figs and herbs, another that's just olive oil, garlic, and salt. You dunk a crescent-shaped roll and let the oil coat your tongue. You sigh, eyes fluttering. You are not ashamed. This is divine service. Sensory worship. Liturgical licking. Beside you, a senior priest eyes the table and says, "Do you remember when we used to shape loaves like scarabs?" You nod. They made a comeback last week in Thebes. He chuckles. Everything old is new again. You hear singing now, not formal chants, but that soft, rolling harmony that creeps in after 2 hours of communal feasting. The kind of music that comes from full bellies and unguarded hearts. A group near the temple columns is sharing bread in a circle, passing it clockwise like some sacred game of snack tag. You recognize one song, an old hymn that thanks the gods for barley, honey, and the gift of fermentation. Appropriate. Suddenly, the wind picks up. A gust sends a swirl of flour and ash across the courtyard. You shield your plate. Someone loses a loaf to the breeze. It lands beside a stone lion statue, which seems unimpressed. Another priest retrieves it, brushes it off, and eats it anyway. 5-second rule, sacred edition. As the ovens die down, the final batch of bread is placed on a long altar stone. These loaves aren't for eating. They're for offering. You step forward with the others, placing your final crescent of date bread beside the rest. You whisper a silent thanks. For the dough, the warmth, the feeling of communion, both literal and divine. Then you return to your mat, stomach full, heart even fuller. And though there are more courses to come, you already feel like you've tasted something immortal. The beer arrives next, not just a drink, but a presence. You hear it before you see it, the gentle splash of jugs being carried in pairs, the low clink of ceramic against ceramic as they're lowered to the ground. Then the smell hits, wheat, dates, and something deep and yeasty, like sun-warmed bread left in a damp cellar. You sit up straighter. Your stomach protests, but your curiosity overrules it. This is the real stuff. Beer in your world isn't filtered. It's not bubbly or golden or casually held at a football match. It's a thick, almost chewable drink that comes in shades of amber and mud, cloudy with grain, alive with sediment. You don't sip it, you work through it. And tonight's batch? Brewed specially for the feast, left to ferment under lunar light, stirred by women who whispered prayers as they ground emmer into mash. You're handed a cup. Not glass, of course. A red clay beaker, warm at the rim, damp with condensation. You peer into it. It looks like porridge gone rogue. But you've had this before, and you know better than to judge. You raise it to your lips and take a cautious gulp. It's good. Really good. Sweet at first, like raisins soaked in sun. Then sour. Then nutty. Then it punches the back of your throat with a bitter, yeasty kick. You exhale hard. Your sinuses clear. One of the nearby priests pats you on the back like you've just finished a rite of passage. Maybe you have. Historians agree that beer was a staple in ancient Egypt, used not just as a drink, but as food, payment, and even medicine. Some brews were mild enough for children. Others, like the one you're holding, were festival only, strong, sacred, and just this side of dangerous. There's even a record of workers being paid in beer, sometimes more than bread. Which makes sense. After one of these, you feel almost generous. Even toward the high priest. Someone nearby starts humming a drinking chant. You've heard this one before. It ends with a line about dancing with Hathor under a copper moon. The rhythm picks up. So does the laughter. Priests, usually so buttoned up and bone dry, begin to loosen. One knocks over a bread tray and salutes it like a fallen comrade. Another shouts a joke involving a hippo in a barge. It makes no sense, but you laugh anyway. Then you spot it, the ceremonial beer bowl. Bigger than the jugs. Wide enough to drown a child. It's brought out once a year and placed at the center of the courtyard, filled to the brim with the strongest brew the temple makes. Legend says it was designed after a vision, an offering Hathor herself whispered to a priest mid-trance. Fringe scholars call it the goddess's punch bowl. You just call it trouble. You watch as ladles are dipped and cups pass. A priest you know only as Chenfi takes one and promptly starts reciting lines from the Book of the Dead in falsetto. Someone claps. Another joins in. You accept your own ladleful, not wanting to look like a lightweight. It's intense. The kind of drink that makes your ears tingle and your shoulders hum. You close your eyes. A breeze sweeps through. You sway slightly. Is that the beer? Or the divine? Hard to tell. You open your eyes to see an elder priest attempting to balance 3 fig-stuffed rolls on his head. He fails, spectacularly. The rolls hit the floor. A young priest leaps to save them. Bread is sacred, he cries, and everyone bursts into laughter. You glance at the high priest again. He's still composed. Mostly. But there's a tiny smile playing on his lips now. That's as close to approval as you're going to get. And then, right on cue, the beer games begin. It starts with a toast. To Osiris, who died but still knows how to party. Then another, to Hathor, goddess of beauty, music, and probably hangovers. Someone raises a cup to Sekhmet, may she not burn down the temple tonight. You're laughing, clutching your side, nearly spilling what's left of your drink. You remember a story told last festival, how priests at Dendera once drank so much during a feast of Hathor that they passed out in the sanctuary and had to be carried home in reed mats. Some say it was disgraceful. Others claim it was the highest form of worship, surrendering fully to divine ecstasy. Historians still argue whether these ritual intoxications were controlled or completely unhinged. Your current experience? Somewhere in between. You're still upright. Mostly. But your limbs feel floaty. Like the gods poured sunlight into your joints. A bell rings softly near the altar. Time for the next ritual. Everyone's still laughing, but they hush quickly. Cups are lowered. Faces settle. The high priest stands. He raises his own cup, not to drink, but to pour. The beer spills onto the ground, dark and slow. It soaks into the dust. An offering. For the gods. For the ancestors. For all who drank before you. You follow suit, tipping a few drops from your beaker onto the floor. The smell intensifies. Yeast. Grain. Earth. Memory. Then you drink again. And this time, slower. Reverent. A communion not just with the divine, but with the thousands of priests who sat here before you, on the same mats, under the same stars, sipping from the same sacred bowl. As the moon climbs higher, the beer keeps flowing. Someone brings out a lyre and plucks a tune. Another priest starts humming. The courtyard begins to glow, not from torches, but from warmth, voices, presence. You lie back on your mat, beer cup resting on your chest, eyes fixed on the stars. You think about R.A. About barley. About laughter that feels ancient. About how, in this moment, the gods don't feel far away. They feel close. Intimate. Almost tipsy. Your belly has started to protest. Not with pain exactly, more like disbelief. It sends the occasional sluggish ripple up your spine like a groan, not from hunger, but from absolute surrender. You've eaten barley stews, spice breads, pomegranate glazes, and beer thick enough to spoon. And now, as the next wave of offerings arrives, your gut seems to whisper, really? More? Yes, more. Because this is the part of the feast the old priests warned you about. The meats. Not the humble pigeons or sweet lentils of earlier courses. No, this is the serious stuff. The course that legends are made of. This is where you find out whether the gods favor your digestion, or whether you'll need divine intervention just to roll off your mat tomorrow. It begins innocently enough. A soft flute playing. The hush of the courtyard. Then, the smell. Rich, smoky, spiced with dried herbs and wood ash. Someone nearby whispers, "That's calf." And not just any calf. This is the sacred meat of the ceremony, slaughtered, blessed, and fire-roasted as an offering to Hathor, the goddess of joy, motherhood, and, tonight, barbecued excellence. The calf is wheeled out on a platform of woven reeds, steaming under a crust of salt and oil. You catch a glimpse of the meat, darkened to near black at the edges, glistening with rendered fat. You inhale involuntarily. Your brain tries to tell you you're full. Your tongue tells it to shut up. You get your portion, a thick, tender cut, still hot, still dripping. It's placed gently on a small lotus leaf mat. The priest who delivers it bows. You nod, because words have become irrelevant. One bite. That's all it takes. It's soft, charred, melts instantly, almost embarrassingly. The herbs on the crust crackle slightly between your teeth, releasing some mix of coriander and crushed dates. You close your eyes. You chew. You wonder if joy like this is legal. This isn't just food. This is sacred meat. Sacrifice meat. Reserved only for high festivals. The calf, carefully selected and ritually cleansed, was offered to Hathor earlier that day. And after the offering, the temple shared it. Not just among the priests, but with the poor waiting outside the gates. What wasn't eaten tonight would be distributed at dawn. Fairness, the divine way. Still, your portion feels generous. Suspiciously generous. Someone probably pulled a string. Or maybe your attendance record finally earned you some meaty karma. Historians are divided about how often Egyptian priests consumed meat, especially of the ritually sacrificed variety. Some records suggest it was rare, kept for high ceremonies and elite circles. Others believe it was more common than we think, especially for those involved directly in the rites. What's certain is that meat was sacred, powerful, and carefully regulated. You didn't eat it casually. You didn't snack on cow jerky during temple cleaning duty. Tonight, though, the rules bend. You're not just feeding your body. You're symbolically completing the sacrifice. The gods accept the soul of the offering. You honor the rest with your teeth. You're halfway through your portion when another platter arrives. Duck this time. Roasted on reeds, stuffed with herbs, glazed with fermented honey. You blink. Your stomach groans in confusion. Your heart, however, leaps. The duck is leaner, spicier, almost gamey. A different energy entirely. If the calf is motherly warmth, the duck is wild defiance. You nibble. You sip beer. You take a breath. And then you spot something strange. A small clay bowl passed by hand, never placed on the table. Inside, grilled ibex. Thin strips, salted, stacked like little scrolls. Rare. Expensive. Likely a gift from a northern trader. You manage to grab one strip as it comes by. It's tough, peppery, smoked until it's more leather than meat. You know, like a cat on a shoelace. It's perfect, not just because of the flavor, but because of what it represents: connection. Between cities, between priests, between rituals performed hundreds of miles apart, now folded into one shared feast. The courtyard is quieter now. The early laughter has faded into hums and sighs. Everyone's chewing slower. Movements more deliberate. The meat has shifted the mood, made things heavier, holier. You look down at your leaf mat. Grease pools in the corners. Bones glisten like polished ivory. You're full, but there's still a slice of duck. A sliver of calf. You take them both. You'll regret it. You'll be glad you did. A senior priest begins reciting a verse, low and rhythmic, meant to honor the spirit of the animal. You join in without thinking, words rolling off your tongue like well-oiled beads. You've done this before. But tonight, the words stick. They mean something. You glance at the meat bones in front of you and feel a strange reverence. Not guilt. Reverence. These creatures weren't just food. They were offerings. Chosen. Blessed. They fed gods and humans alike. And in some odd, poetic way, their sacrifice ensures that joy returns to the earth in every full stomach and sleepy smile. You lean back. Let the meat settle. The stars are clear above, and the smoke from the roasting pit swirls upward like a silent hymn. You spot two priests asleep under a fig tree, their hands still oily, their snores strangely musical. Someone clears his throat. Another bowl is coming. This time, you don't even ask. You simply open your hands and receive. You're reclining now, belly full and limbs pleasantly heavy, when a familiar rhythm takes over the feast. Not a drumbeat, not something simpler. The gentle shuffle of footsteps, the rustle of reed baskets, the soft clink of fruit against clay. It's fruit time. And not just any fruit. This is the part of the feast where everything fresh and sticky and sun-ripened makes its dazzling appearance. You sit up a little, propping yourself with one elbow. The scent hits you first, sweet figs, tart grapes, something citrusy in the air, maybe imported citron from across the sea. If meat was the feast's heart, fruit is its afterglow. You reach for a bowl passed down by a young priest who looks like he might pass out from sugar fumes alone. It's filled with small golden dates, each sticky with syrup and sprinkled with ground nuts. You pop one into your mouth and it bursts like a sun-warmed secret, sweet, musky, with a little crunch from the seeds. Your eyes flutter. You chew slowly, carefully. This is the kind of taste that deserves a moment. Fruit offerings in ancient Egypt weren't just a treat, they were symbolic. Grapes for fertility, figs for the cycle of rebirth, dates for the gods' favor. You've seen them offered in temples, stacked like pyramids beside the feet of Osiris statues. Tonight, you eat what was once reserved for stone altars. Historians still wonder how much of these offerings were actually consumed by priests after the gods had their share, or if it was quietly handed off to temple workers and the local poor. What's certain is this: priests loved their fruit. Papyrus scrolls praise figs like odes. There's even a surviving recipe that calls for boiling raisins with lotus petals into a jam so fragrant, people supposedly used it as perfume. You hope that's true. You'd wear it. Someone hands you a small wedge of melon, still glistening with dew. You bite. It's cold. Somehow. A miracle in the desert. The sweetness floods your mouth. You blink slowly and whisper a quiet thank you to whichever priest thought to cool it in a shaded basin. Then comes the fun part: pomegranates. Whole ones, carried like precious gems in linen slings. You crack one open gently, fingers stained immediately with deep red juice. The seeds shine like rubies. You scoop a handful and eat them one by one, letting each pop like a drumbeat of flavor across your tongue. Tart, sweet, messy, perfect. A priest across the mat eats his straight from the rind like a jackal. You pretend not to notice. You're not the only one feeling the fruit high. A cluster of younger priests are trading great bunches back and forth like offerings in a sacred fruit market. One pretends to be a pharaoh, demanding tribute. Another drops a fig dramatically and accuses someone of offending Isis. Everyone laughs. You do too, juice dribbling down your chin. Then you spot it, the fringe fruit. The one that only shows up if a wealthy patron has donated extravagantly to the temple. An apricot. Dried, sugared, and curled into itself like a tiny scroll. You accept it reverently. One bite and it's everything you hoped: floral, tart, barely chewy. It tastes like a sunrise filtered through cinnamon. Behind you, someone's brought out a tray of lotus seeds. They're toasted, still warm, dusted in a fine salt. You pick at a few. Crunchy, nutty, weirdly addictive. You remember hearing that lotus seeds were meant to cleanse the spirit after meat. You don't know if it's working, but your mouth appreciates the contrast. Just as you're beginning to settle again, someone leans over and says, "Try the priest's bowl." You raise an eyebrow. He grins. "Trust me." You're handed a clay dish filled with what looks like candied fruit. Figs, grapes, even slivers of citron rind, simmered in honey and crushed herbs, then rolled into tiny balls. One bite and your eyes widen. It's sour, then wildly sweet. Then a whisper of spice creeps in. Cinnamon? Clove? Maybe something more exotic. You nod slowly. This isn't food. It's an incantation. This is what they save for the priests. The real priests. The ones who fasted, prayed, sacrificed, and earned the right to taste the god's pantry. You lie back again, chewing slowly. Your fingers are sticky. Your face is probably stained with juice. You don't care. This is joy. Real, sacred, sugar-laced joy. Around you, the courtyard glows with torchlight. Fruit peels curl on stone plates like hieroglyphs of indulgence. Seeds scatter like stardust across woven mats. The air smells like cinnamon and smoke. You hear low murmurs of satisfaction. A few priests have started reclining fully, arms behind heads, smiling dumbly at the moon. And just when you think the fruit parade is over, one last treat arrives. Pressed fig cakes wrapped in palm leaves. You take one. It's heavy in your hand, soft and fragrant. You bite. The texture is chewy, rich, almost fudge-like. The sweetness is deep, aged. Like wisdom you can taste. You don't say a word. You just chew. Slowly. You watch the night deepen. The stars multiply. Your breath slows. The feast has changed tempo again, from the wild joy of beer and meat, to the slow sweetness of fruits and hush. Everything is softer now. Even your thoughts. You sit there, sticky and sacred, filled with offerings meant for gods and men alike. You reach for one last pomegranate seed, hold it between thumb and forefinger, then let it fall back onto your plate. You've had enough. For now. Your fingers are still glazed with fruit syrup when the rhythm of the courtyard shifts once more. It's not a sound, exactly. It's a pulse. A slow, deliberate energy moving from the hearth toward the temple's inner chambers. You feel it before you see it, an invitation wrapped in scent. Warm flour, palm oil, smoke. The baking has begun. You know this part. It's your favorite. Because tonight, the priests don't just eat the sacred bread, they make it. Or at least, some of you do. The ritual demands it. Not store-bought, not slave-labored, but kneaded, shaped, and marked by holy hands. The logic? You've sung praises, you've burned incense, you've prepared offerings, and now, you return to earth. You bake. You rise, slowly, like dough after the second proof. Your knees protest. Your robes sticking to your back. Your stomach is doing that awkward full but curious thing. But you follow the others toward the ovens anyway, drawn by the promise of hot bread under starlight. The temple's baking pit is already alive with glowing coals and soft laughter. Clay ovens hum with heat. Flat stones, pre-oiled, line the ground. Apprentices roll dough with practiced hands, their white tunics now dusted entirely in flour. You step in, greeted by a boy you remember training just 3 seasons ago. He hands you a bowl. Emmer wheat, ground coarse. A little barley flour for stretch. Crushed dates. A pinch of salt. Palm oil. And, is that poppy seed? Bold choice. You sink your hands into the bowl. It's warm. Sticky. Alive. You press your fingers in slowly, gently folding the mix into itself like a prayer. Around you, the scene blurs into something ancient and intimate, priests elbow deep in dough, shoulders touching, flour streaking foreheads, the scent of burning wood and sweetness filling the air. You're not just making food. You're imprinting spirit. This is ritual craft. The loaves you shape now will be part of the temple offering come dawn. And, if they pass inspection, part of your own final meal before the fast resumes. Your dough is ready. You pinch off a lump, roll it, shape it. What to make tonight? Some priests opt for the classic, discs stamped with the Eye of Horus. Protective, easy, aesthetically safe. Others get more creative. You spot a loaf shaped like a lotus flower. Another like a crocodile mid-roll. Someone's crafting a falcon with outstretched wings, which immediately slumps in the middle. He frowns. You pretend not to notice. You shape your own, a simple ankh. Symbol of life. Symbol of balance. You press the loop carefully, narrow the arms, smooth the edges. Then place it gently on a hot stone to bake. The smell rises almost instantly. Flour meets heat. Dates caramelize. The air swirls with the scent of ancient kitchens. You kneel beside the stone, watching your ankh loaf slowly rise. Bubbles form on the surface. The bottom crisps. A bit of syrup leaks and hisses. You smile. Historians have argued over what shapes these breads truly took. Some say they were purely symbolic, meant to be seen, not eaten. Others claim the most beautiful loaves were reserved for divine statues, with simpler versions consumed by the priests. There are even rare tomb murals showing priests biting directly into crocodile bread, wide-eyed in reverence, or possibly delight. Your loaf finishes with a satisfying pop of steam. You scoop it up with a flat spatula. It's misshapen, a little crisp on the edges, sticky underneath. But it's yours. You whisper a blessing under your breath and place it among the cooling rows. Nearby, a priest has made an entire tray of tiny bread animals, cats, jackals, even a beetle. You marvel at the detail. One priest chuckles, Sekhmet would be pleased. Another murmurs, until she finds out that cat has raisins for eyes. Laughter ripples through the courtyard again. Flour is tossed. Someone gets hit in the face with a sticky wad of half-kneaded dough. He doesn't retaliate. He just eats it. Then come the competitive bakers. These are the ones who've memorized every sacred scroll, every divine flour ratio, and aren't afraid to show it. Their loaves are perfect. Crisp on the outside. Soft on the inside. They radiate smugness. You pretend not to care. You are above loaf envy. But you do accept a bite when one is offered. It's glorious. You nod solemnly. The priest bows like he's just won a golden idol. The final loaves are gathered for the altar. The high priest arrives, robes perfect, face unreadable. He inspects each shape, picks up your ankh, turns it slowly in his palm. You hold your breath. He places it gently among the chosen offerings. You exhale. As the baking wraps, you return to your mat, hands still sticky with dough. Your stomach is too full for more, but your spirit feels light. This wasn't just fun. It was service. The sacred in flour and fire. You watch as the younger priests clean the oven stones, brushing ash into woven baskets, preparing the site for dawn. You lie back once more, your breath smelling of warm grain, your hands crusted in sugar and sweat. Someone hands you a piece of still warm jackal bread. You bite. It's crunchy, sweet, a little burnt. Perfect. The stars shimmer above, oven smoke trailing into the sky like the last verse of a chant. And in your lap sits your second loaf, an unclaimed baboon bread someone left behind. You eat it with quiet reverence, smiling like a flour-dusted fool. You're just beginning to drift into that post-baking bliss, a combination of sugar haze, smoke scent, and deep belly contentment, when the tone of the feast softens again. The music fades. The chatter dulls to a murmur. Even the torches seem to dim, casting longer shadows against the walls. Something shifts. Something solemn. It's time to eat with the dead. No one announces it. There's no trumpet call or priestly decree. But you've been here before. You feel the hush settle over the courtyard like a second robe. One of memory. Of respect. Of mystery. You rise without speaking. Others do too. Quiet footsteps on stone. Bowed heads. Still full plates held in reverent hands. You follow the line of priests toward the side of the temple, down the narrower corridor where the walls are lined with inscriptions, names of those who once stood where you stand, served as you serve, and feasted as you now feast. They're gone now. Their mouths are dust. But tonight, you feed them anyway. At the end of the passage, you descend into the crypt chamber. It's cool here. The air smells of old linen, myrrh, and the faint sweetness of incense long since burned. The torches flicker with restraint, as if afraid to breathe too loudly. You walk past stone sarcophagi, past clay jars sealed with wax, past painted images of jackals and stars. You've seen this place by daylight, dry, clean, sealed. But at night? During the feast? It lives again. You kneel at a familiar alcove. There's a small stone platform, carved with the name of a priest you once trained beside. You place your plate there, a folded fig loaf, a few grapes, a bite of roast meat, a sliver of the jackal bread. You pause. Say nothing. Then take a matching bite of each for yourself. Slowly. Silently. This is the ritual. You share. You mirror. You remember. Historians still debate the literal versus symbolic function of these moments. Were priests genuinely eating with their ancestors? Or was this just a gesture, one last offering before the food turned to ash and story? Some claim the dead ate through scent, absorbing the essence of food left behind. Others believe more practically, the food was enjoyed by the living and the dead alike. Two worlds, one meal. You prefer not to dissect it. You just do it. You glance to your left. Another priest is eating with a statue of his great uncle, an earlier high priest. He offers a pomegranate seed to the carved stone hand, then eats one himself. Beside him, someone leaves a whole duck thigh, then presses their forehead to the stone. No one speaks. No one needs to. You reach into your robe and pull out something you saved earlier, 2 lotus candies wrapped in fig leaf. One for your mentor. One for you. The candy is soft, floral, faintly bitter. It sticks to your teeth. You don't mind. You're thinking of his voice. His laugh. The way he used to burn the barley bread every single feast and blame the fire spirit. You chuckle softly. The sound feels strange down here. But good. You look around. Every priest is engaged in some quiet communion, some with tomb walls, others with memory alone. One man eats an entire melon slice beside a faded carving of his father, then wipes his chin and whispers a joke only the dead could understand. You don't cry. Not here. Not tonight. But your throat tightens. Back upstairs, the courtyard still flickers with movement. But down here, time moves differently. You feel suspended. Between worlds. Between meals. Between breaths. And then, from the other side of the crypt, a laugh. Not loud. Not inappropriate. Just soft. Almost reverent. One of the youngest priests has knocked over his offering plate and is now carefully scraping dates off the floor. He looks up, sheepish. He always said I was clumsy, he whispers, nodding to the name above the tomb. You smile. You nod back. You take your last bite slowly. A piece of bread. Cold now, but still sweet. You chew as if every movement is being watched. Judged. Or remembered. Then you gather your things. Wipe your hands. Bow your head once more. And return. Back in the courtyard, the atmosphere has shifted again. It's lighter, calmer. Like something was carried out on your shoulders and left down in that cool room. A kind of spiritual exhale. The plates are smaller now. The food is fewer. You notice more bowls of water being passed, more cloths wiping fingers, more priests leaning back with half-closed eyes. The feast is far from over, but something has passed. You feel it. As you sit, a server places one more dish before you. Roasted nuts and honey. Meant for snacking. Meant for memory. You take one and let it crack between your teeth. Sweet. Soft. Familiar. You think of all the hands that have shaped this meal, alive and long gone. The ones who taught you how to knead dough. How to sip beer slowly. How to place an offering without greed. You think of the cycle. Fasting. Feasting. Remembering. Beginning again. And as the fire crackles and someone hums a soft, tuneless lullaby into their wine cup, you settle back into your spot, pressing your palms to the cool stone beneath. You are not alone. Not tonight. The sweetness lingers. Not just on your tongue, but in the air, in the way the night settles over the courtyard like a silk blanket drawn up to your chin. You've eaten, you've remembered, you've laughed with the living and fed the dead. So naturally, it's time for more food. Of course. You don't question it now. You've learned. The feast isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. And this spiral loops back to something extraordinary, something rare, golden, and revered. The sacred cow. Not just any cow. Tonight, it's meat from the special herd kept near the Temple of Hathor. Animals bred for purity, fed on select grasses, blessed with songs and rituals before ever being considered for sacrifice. This is a practical livestock. This is divine currency. And now, that divinity's been seared to perfection and plated. The servers return with careful hands, each holding a small triangle of roast, dark, glistening, wrapped in warm leaves. You sit up straighter. Around you, conversation hushes again, not like in the crypt, but a kind of reverent anticipation. Everyone knows what's coming. The meat is unwrapped and offered with a low blessing. You nod and accept it. The scent rises first, smoke, honey, cumin, something deep and earthy. The texture is perfect, visibly tender even before your fingers tear a bite free. You eat, and for a moment, there's nothing but the flavor. No courtyard, no fire, no chanting, just that silky soft meat dissolving with almost no resistance, the fat sweetened by hours of low heat and herbs. It's not chewy. It's not overwhelming. It's gentle. Like the cow wants you to taste how good life can be. Some say this meat brings visions. That if you eat it slowly, with intention, the goddess whispers to your bones. Others say it's just really, really well cooked. Historians still argue whether this sacred meat was ever truly eaten by priests, or simply offered and symbolically consumed. But tonight, your taste buds are fairly certain someone's been sneaking bites for centuries. You close your eyes. Let the second bite melt. There's a touch of fig smoke in it. Maybe more rubbed into the skin. You're not sure. You don't want to be sure. You just want to stay here, in this flavor, forever. You're not alone. The older priest across from you has stopped chewing mid-bite, eyes wide. He nods slowly, muttering something that sounds suspiciously like better than last year. One of the junior priests clutches his chest like he's witnessed a miracle. Someone nearby whispers, "I saw Hathor in the steam." You don't laugh. You can't. Your mouth is busy with reverence. Then comes the broth, served in small bowls of burnished clay, steaming gently. It's the final echo of the sacred cow. Bones, herbs, and rendered fat simmer down into a cloudy golden soup. You sip. Your eyes close again. The warmth radiates from the roof of your mouth to your fingertips. Every muscle in your body exhales. If anything could prepare your body to keep eating, it's this broth. The high priest takes a slow, ceremonial sip. Then, with great solemnity, he places the bowl beside his mat. It is finished. The meat is gone. The moment has passed. But oh, what a moment! To mark it, a chant begins, quiet, low, steady. Not for the dead, not for the gods, for the cow. You recognize the words. You've sung them before. They praise nourishment, sacrifice, the bounty of the earth. One line simply repeats, "That which walked, now gives us breath." You join in. You've never been more full. Not just in your stomach, in your skin, in yourself. As the chant fades, someone begins lighting small oil lamps and placing them in a circle around the courtyard. The flickering light creates halos around each priest. You feel like you're floating in a constellation made of bread, smoke, and beef fat incense. And then, just when you think you've peaked, a final dish arrives. A slice of heart. Yes, literal heart. Not for the faint-hearted, ironically. It's tender, sliced thin, seared on both sides. Reserved for the most sacred part of the animal. Said to carry the essence of Hathor's blessings. You stare at it. It stares back, metaphorically. You take a bite. It's rich, dense, minerally, like eating the memory of blood and warmth and sun. You chew slowly, thoughtfully. You're not sure you love it. You're not sure you're supposed to. But you finish it anyway. You feel grounded, serious, whole. You place the empty leaf aside and fold your hands. Across the courtyard, others are doing the same. This is the moment between courses. The liminal space. The part where you feel both light and heavy, full and somehow still open. Someone pours water into your hands. You wash. Slowly. Letting the last traces of meat and sacred oil trickle into the dust. You wonder, as you dry them, how many priests before you have done this exact thing. In this exact order. With the same reverence. The same greed. The same awe. The fire crackles. A fig seed pops in the coals. A priest begins playing the harp again, soft, low notes that feel like falling leaves. You lean back on your mat. Stretch. Smile. And wait for what comes next. Because something always comes next. You don't even see them coming this time. The sweets. They arrive without ceremony, like a dream you didn't know you were having until you woke up chewing on sugar. One moment you're watching the torchlight flicker across the stone walls, and the next, there's a tray of lotus-shaped pastries in front of you, dusted with something golden and glowing faintly like morning sun trapped in flour. You reach without thinking. Bite gently. Crunch. The outer shell shatters like delicate papyrus, giving way to a molten center of honey, crushed nuts, and something fragrant, rose water? Maybe even cardamom. It floods your tongue, melts into your teeth, and pulls a small sound from your throat. Not quite a moan. Not quite a prayer. Somewhere in between. A priest across from you nods solemnly. The bakers outdid themselves. Another nearby murmurs, "This one made me rethink the afterlife." You believe them. Sweets in a priest's diet are rare. During the fasting season, even fruit is rationed. But during festivals, especially the major ones like this, the rulebook gets rewritten in syrup. And what's laid before you now is less a dessert spread and more an architectural achievement of sugar, flour, and theology. You eye the trays as they pass, honey tarts shaped like ankhs, sesame fingers wrapped in fig leather, candied lotus seeds, grape jelly dumplings, even an enormous slab of baked date pudding cut into wedges so thick they could stop a chariot wheel. You accept one of everything. You try to pace yourself. You really do. But the textures are too tempting. Some are chewy, others crisp, and a few dissolve before you can finish chewing. You get powdered sugar on your lips. Sticky syrup on your robes. You stop caring. Historians agree that sweets were considered luxurious in ancient Egypt, available mostly to priests, royalty, and the rich. Temple kitchens hoarded honey and fruit like treasure. But this is over the top. One preserved scroll from the Temple of Mud even includes a recipe for Ra's Delight, a lotus jam candy rolled in gold leaf. Fringe scholars have argued whether this was meant to be eaten or just looked at. Either way, you'd risk a few teeth for a bite. One particularly enthusiastic junior priest offers you a triple offering cake, 3 stacked layers, fig, almond, and something crunchy that might be crushed barley candy. It wobbles dangerously on its little reed plate. You take a bite from the top. It tastes like memory, like holidays, like guilt, a little bit, but the good kind. And then come the sugar sculptures. Yes, sculptures. A separate tray rolls in, carried by 2 novices looking like they're afraid to breathe. On it, delicate figures molded entirely from sugar paste, miniature falcons, cows, even a tiny sphinx the size of your palm. You're offered one shaped like the eye of Ra. You hesitate. It's beautiful. Intricate. Probably took hours. Maybe days. You bite into the pupil. Crunch. Peppermint. Unexpected. But welcome. You try not to giggle. But the peppermint is too surprising. Someone else eats the sugar baboon. Another priest accidentally decapitates a lion and looks genuinely remorseful. Forgive me, Sekhmet, he whispers. You reach for a fig bar that's been carved to look like a cartouche. It crumbles before you even lift it. You lick the crumbs from your hand, nodding like a scholar who's solved an ancient riddle. As the trays circle again, a small bowl is placed near your mat. It's filled with a thick, glossy sauce, dark as molasses but thinner, scented with cloves and toasted sesame. A priest leans over and mutters, "Dip the sesame bread in it." "Trust me." You obey. The result is overwhelming. The sweet is deep, bordering on bitter, but the bread softens it perfectly. It's a conversation in your mouth. A philosophical debate with no winner. You hear someone burp softly and then say, "I regret nothing." It feels like a holy mantra. Nearby, one of the elders begins telling a story about a past festival where someone hid candied locusts inside a bread roll as a joke. Another priest adds that the high priest bit into it and claimed it was divine punishment for vanity. Whether the locust was intentional or not remains a mystery. Historians still debate whether insect confections were ever a thing or just a one-time prank with excellent staying power. The joke lingers in the air, sticky and sweet. Then, surprise, a second wave of pastries. You blink slowly as they're brought in, each nestled in leaf wraps still warm from the oven. These are heavier, denser. The kind of dessert that sits in your belly and whispers, "Lie down now. We're staying a while." You obey. You sink back onto your mat, cradling the last of your honey dumpling like a sacred orb. Around you, priests are reclining, some asleep, others lazily dipping bread into honey bowls like gods in a soft coma. The stars overhead have shifted slightly. The torches burn lower. But in the firelight, your fellow priests look like they've stepped out of a tomb mural, reclining in feasting positions, faces full of peace and sugar. You take your last bite. It's a sesame cake. Still warm. Crunchy at the edges. You let it melt slowly across your tongue, eyes half-lidded, chest full. You've never been this sweet. Or this still. And as someone quietly begins to hum the old lullaby of Isis, the one about the moon and the fig tree, you close your eyes and float there for a moment, wrapped in sugar, sweat, and smoke. No regrets. Just crumbs. The sweetness fades, but the night keeps going. Like a slow-moving boat on the Nile, it drifts forward, soft and inevitable. You think maybe, the feast has ended. That there's nothing left to taste, no more surprises lurking behind temple columns. But then, a small bell chimes. You open your eyes. It's time for the spices. Not food, exactly. Not another course. This is something subtler, stranger, a ritual moment that dances right on the line between seasoning and spellwork. The spice trays come first. Small, shallow dishes made of carved alabaster or red clay, each filled with powders and pastes, seeds and peels. The colors are stunning, deep saffron gold, dark cinnamon brown, vivid green, bright crimson. The scents, even stronger, peppery, smoky, sweet, and sharp all at once. You sit up straighter. Your body might be stuffed, but your senses are still curious. And spices? They're not just about taste tonight. They're about memory, power, purification. You reach for the bowl nearest you. Coriander, ground fine. Beside it, a dish of dried mint, then fenugreek, clove, crushed caraway. Each priest is handed a small linen square to pinch and smell, sometimes to rub on their palms, and yes, sometimes to eat. You try the cumin. Earthy. Familiar. It takes you back to your first year as a temple novice, helping prepare meat rubs for a feast you weren't allowed to attend. You remember sneaking a fingertip of spice, your tongue burning all afternoon. Now you eat it freely. Next is cinnamon bark dipped in honey. You chew slowly. The warmth travels from your tongue down to your chest. Your shoulders relax. Your jaw unclenches. A priest nearby sighs like he's just remembered something long buried. Maybe he has. And then comes garlic. Ah yes, garlic. The eternal temple debate. Some temples forbid it. Others bless it. Yours? Cautiously allows it. In moderation. With ritual washing. And absolutely no garlic breath near the sacred inner chambers. Tonight, though, all bets are off. You're handed a small clove, roasted, caramelized, spread onto a tiny wafer of flatbread. You glance at the high priest. He nods. It's allowed. You bite. Sweet, smoky, pungent. The garlic floods your mouth like a confession. You close your eyes and chew slowly, trying not to imagine the gods themselves cringing at your breath. Historians still argue whether garlic and onions were banned entirely in priestly diets or only restricted during sacred rituals. Some claim they were spiritually disruptive. Others say they were vital to ward off disease and bad omens. You're not sure. But you know this, that roasted clove just unlocked something primal in your brain. More spices come. Cardamom pods to chew and crunch. Cracked black pepper soaked in date wine. Dried ginger slices dipped in syrup. Someone brings out a jar of what they call sun paste, a mixture of turmeric, sesame, and mustard. You taste it with a strip of unleavened bread. It tingles. Then it burns. Then it fades, leaving you blinking. You look around. Everyone's cheeks are flushed. Eyes bright. Bellies full but spirits alive. A priest across from you sneezes violently, then smiles. The gods, he says, wiping his nose, appreciate intensity. One of the oldest priests begins passing around dried lemon rinds to chew. You try one. It's bitter, astringent, cleansing, like wiping your soul with a rough linen cloth. After everything you've eaten, it feels necessary. And then, finally, the onions. Cooked, thankfully. Small, sweet, grilled whole until they collapse under your teeth. You're offered one. You hesitate. Onions are considered offensive to some temples, too strong, too vulgar, too bodily. But tonight, your temple permits them. As a final act of purging. One bite, they say, drives away lingering spirits. You eat it. It's delicious. Soft. Sweet. Smoky. It makes your eyes water a little, but it feels good. Cleansing. You lean back again, mouth tingling from spice, eyes half closed. This isn't indulgence anymore. This is ritual. It's not about pleasure. It's about balance. The priests begin to chant. A low, pulsing rhythm. You've heard this before, it's part of the closing of the table rite. The words translate loosely to, what is within is now aligned. You repeat the line with them, letting the syllables anchor you. Someone lights a small cone of incense, frankincense and cinnamon. The smoke curls into your lap. You inhale slowly. The warmth settles deep in your lungs. A breeze picks up through the open courtyard, carrying spice-scented air through your hair and robe. You breathe it all in, every note of pepper, coriander, smoke, and clove. It's like being swallowed by the feast itself. One of the novices approaches with a basin of water and a cloth. You wash your hands again, this time slowly, deliberately, as if removing more than just syrup and spice. You pat your hands dry on your sash. The last item passed is a tiny bundle, a sachet of dried herbs tied with papyrus string. A take-home blessing. You tuck it into your belt, heart full. The courtyard is quiet now. Not empty. Just still. Even the fire seems to have calmed. You hear only the breeze, the faint clink of dishes being gathered, and the soft murmur of prayers half-sung, half-dreamed. Your mouth tingles. Your nose twitches. Your spirit feels awake. And you realize, with a small, secret smile, you haven't just feasted. You've been transformed. By now the feast has quieted into something almost holy, but not quite still. The stars are heavy above you, thick and slow in their burn, like lanterns lit just for this night. You stretch your limbs. They ache in the best way. Your belly is stretched too, but not uncomfortably, just full of stories. Bread stories. Meat stories. Stories that taste like figs and honey and cloves. Then someone tugs gently on your sleeve. A novice, eyes wide, cheeks pink from the oven heat. "It's time," he whispers. You nod. You know what he means. The midnight offerings. You rise slowly, bones creaking like dry papyrus, and follow the flickering torchlight back toward the inner sanctum. Not all priests participate in this part. It's a quiet duty, one performed by those who still have energy, or those who promised a vow. Tonight, it seems the temple has chosen you. The midnight air is cooler now, brushing your skin through the linen robes like a soft river wind. You walk in silence. The path ahead is lit with small ceramic lamps. The novices walk behind you, arms full of trays, small bowls of spiced stew, folded bread, bundles of dried fruit, a little flask of date wine. Not a feast, not quite, but meaningful, symbolic. You pass the gates, into the sanctuary courtyard, where the altar stones glimmer faintly with dew. This is where the offerings will be made, not to the crowds, not even to the inner gods, but to the temple itself, to its breath, to its memory. You kneel. The ground is cool and clean. A novice places the tray beside you. You begin. One piece of bread, one grape, a bowl of lentils, a cup of beer. Not much, but the gestures matter. You place them one by one onto the altar stone, whispering thanks, blessings, hopes. You name your intentions. You speak for the absent, for the dead, for the living who can no longer taste. Behind you, the others do the same. It is not silence here, but something deeper. A quiet that hums. And just when you think the moment has passed, a growl. Not from your stomach, but from under the altar. You freeze. A novice gasps. Someone drops his spoon. You turn slowly. There, crouched near the base of the stone, is a jackal. Yum! Thin. Watching. Its eyes gleam in the firelight. Not fearful. Not aggressive. Just curious. You remain still. You do not reach for anything. You do not breathe too loudly. Jackals are sacred. You've read the myths. You've painted them on temple walls. They walk with Anubis. They guard tombs. They carry the scent of passage. But this one is real. The priests don't speak. No one moves. The jackal sniffs at the bread on the altar. Takes it. Pads away. Gone. The moment breaks. Someone exhales. A novice begins to whisper a prayer of gratitude. You find your voice again. You place a new piece of bread in its place. Same size. Same shape. Balance must be kept. You return to your mat with your heart drumming like a harp string. You don't know if anyone else saw it, or if they'll speak of it. Some things aren't meant for story. Back at your resting place, someone hands you a final treat, a tiny fried fish cake wrapped in palm leaf. You blink. Fish is forbidden to priests during fasts. But the fast is over. And this? This is different. The fish cake is warm in your palm, fragrant with dill and coriander. You look around. No one's stopping you. You bite. It's perfect. Salty. Crispy. The inside melts like warm butter. You smile. And then the best part, no one knows where it came from. Not which kitchen. Not which tray. Not even which priest. Some say it's tradition. A secret last snack. A culinary wink from the gods. Historians don't record this one. It's too odd, too intimate. You eat the whole thing. Carefully. Slowly. You lean back. Satisfied. Then a torch flickers, and someone begins the final clearing. Plates are gathered. Mats are folded. Cups emptied and stacked. But no one speaks of ending. Just of letting it rest. You sip the last of your beer and stare into the dying embers. You think of the jackal. Of the offering. Of the fish cake that wasn't meant to be there. Of how full you were, not just in body, but in every inch of soul. You lie back, arms folded under your head. The sky blurs with smoke and dreams. And somewhere deep in the temple, where no one walks this late, the scent of roasted garlic and lotus candy still lingers in the stones. You wake, or rather, you shift, from a kind of temple doze. Not sleep, exactly. Just that warm, foggy space where breath deepens, bones soften, and time folds like linen. The feast hasn't ended. It's just pause. You blink up at the stars. They haven't moved far. But your stomach? It groans like a temple door. This is the day after. Or rather, the night bleeding into morning after. And as any seasoned priest knows, the morning after a sacred feast is its own kind of ritual. Not of food, well, not much, but of reckoning. Your body is confused. Your mouth is dry. Your belly feels like a museum of everything you've ever eaten. Your tongue? A chalkboard that's tasted cinnamon, duck, fig, beer, and something suspiciously like soap. You sit up slowly, the mat crackling beneath you. All around you, priests lie scattered like the aftermath of a holy slumber party. Some are snoring. Others are curled like cats. One has his hands still resting on a date cake, as if guarding it in his dreams. You stagger toward the water basin. It's cool, merciful. You rinse your hands, your face, your mouth. You're halfway through splashing your forehead when you notice something floating in the basin. A date. Just bobbing there. You blink. And then you remember, someone, probably during the third cup of beer, dropped it in. Said it was a blessing. You wonder if that means the basin is now holy or unusable. You drink from the side anyway. The gods will understand. You pass a cluster of priests gathered under a fig tree, heads down, voices hoarse. Never again, one whispers. Liar, another replies. You smile. You know how this goes. The Feast of Hathor, the great offering night, it comes every year. And every year, it ends the same way. Regret tangled with reverence. A little nausea. A lot of memory. Someone uncorks a small jar of what's left of the date wine. Just the scent turns your stomach. You wave it off. I found lentil stew on my pillow, a young priest mutters, eyes wide with trauma. You put it there, his friend retorts, face buried in his elbow. You leave them to sort that out. You make your way toward the temple edge, where the cooks have gathered. They're already cleaning. Quietly. Reverently. You catch the scent of charred meat and ash and leftover oil. Your stomach flinches. It's done. The eating part, anyway. But not the remembering. That comes next. You begin to help gather the remaining offerings, some half-eaten, some untouched. They'll be distributed to the poor this morning. A long-standing tradition. Even in excess, nothing goes to waste. You help carry a basket of fig cakes toward the outer gate. A woman waits there, her hands clasped. 2 children cling to her robe. You pass her the basket. She bows deeply. Doesn't speak. She knows. You know. It's enough. As you walk back, you feel the stiffness in your knees, the subtle ache in your back. You're not as young as you were the last festival. But you're still here. And the gods are still listening. Inside, someone's already begun humming again. Not a chant. A lullaby. Old. Familiar. About wheat and rain and the sun's gentle hand. You find your mat again. Sit. Breathe. The high priest walks past. He's chewing. Something small and flaky. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. Leftover baboon bread, he says. You both laugh. The last offering is made just before sunrise. A bowl of water, a piece of bread, and a single grape placed at the temple threshold. It's for the road ahead. The new cycle. The fast that follows the feast. You join the small group kneeling beside it. You whisper the verse with cracked lips. We have been filled, so now we make room. The light creeps over the wall. The first soft gold of day. It spills across your face, warming your forehead, lighting the last crumbs near your sandal. A novice hands you a cloth. You wipe your fingers. Your lips. He says nothing, but his eyes ask the question. Was it worth it? You smile. Always. The courtyard is nearly empty now. Only a few priests remain, folding mats, humming, watching the sun finish what the firelight began. You sit quietly on the same stone where you first tasted barley stew hours, no, a lifetime, ago. Your belly is calm. Your hands are clean. Your thoughts are slow. One last meal before the fast. You're handed a small tray. No ceremony, no hymn, no crowd. Just you, the sun, and a modest offering. A heel of barley bread. A smear of goat cheese. A few olives. A wedge of dried figure. And a sip, just a sip, of date wine diluted with water. You look down at it. Humble. Balanced. Like a comma before silence. This is the sealing meal. A final act of gratitude before returning to abstinence. Everything has a purpose, even the portion size. You eat slowly, not because you're savoring, but because your body has learned. Too much too fast, and the divine becomes indigestion. You take a bite of bread. It's dry. A little tough. But it anchors you. You chew with care. You think of the oven that baked it. The flour that made it. The field where the grain bent beneath the wind months ago. You take a bit of cheese. Tart. Soft. You spread it thinly, sparingly. This is not about indulgence anymore. It's about closure. The olives are sharp. They wake your tongue. The fig is chewy and sweet, one last wink from the gods. You sip the wine. Barely a taste. Just enough to remember what joy feels like at the edge of the throat. No one talks. No one sings. Not here. This is a meal that holds space, not flavor. And yet, it feels divine. The high priest walks past, his tray already empty. He nods to you. You return the gesture. No need for words now. Nearby, a novice fumbles a tray and drops his bread. You rise, offer him yours. He hesitates. You insist. He bows. Takes it. Chews quietly. You watch his jaw move, slow and solemn, and feel a strange tug in your chest. That was your last bite. Your sealing meal. But somehow, sharing it feels more complete than eating it ever could. You lean back again, palms pressed to the stone. Your stomach is no longer the center of your universe. Now, it's your breath, your stillness, your place in the larger rhythm. The temple bells ring once, softly. A signal. The feast has ended. The fast begins. Not as punishment, but as balance. You stand. Stretch. Gather your things, sash, cup, offering cloth now stiff with old honey. You walk toward the temple's inner gate and bow as you pass. And just before the light changes completely, you look back once. The courtyard still glows, not with fire now, but with memory. Trays stacked. Mats folded. A few crumbs caught in cracks. Everything has been eaten, shared, remembered. You smile. And then you walk on. And now, the courtyard is just a shadow behind your eyes. You lie back in your bed, somewhere in your own time, your own place, but still feeling the hum of the temple, of roasted sweetness, warm bread, the spice of garlic and the weight of sacred meats. You let your breath lengthen. Inhale slow. Exhale slower. Your stomach isn't full, maybe, but your mind is, with images of firelight dancing on sandstone, of sugar crusting at the corners of your lips, of priests reclining like lions, laughing softly into the stars. You remember the jackal, the hush in the crypt, the songs that rose like steam from the ovens. It's strange, how distant it all feels now, and yet how close. Like you could stretch out your hand and find sesame stuck to your fingertips. Like you could hear someone humming behind the wall. The gods are quiet now, sated, watching, and your own body thanks you for the story. Not just the food, but the journey. You're ready to rest. Maybe, tonight, you'll dream of baked loaves and fig-stuffed pigeons. Or maybe, just of warm hands pressing dough into shape beneath a sky full of stars. Sleep well, temple servant. You fasted. You feasted. You've remembered. And now, let your spirit be still.